Most fathers cry tears of joy when they see a newborn baby for the first time. My husband, he just checked his watch. I remember lying in that hospital bed, holding our son, waiting for him to sign the birth certificate. But instead of picking up the pen, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'm not signing that. That thing isn't mine." He walked out of the room, thinking he could just erase us. He thought his money and his lawyers could make his own flesh and blood disappear. But he made one big mistake. He underestimated a mother's rage. This is the story of how he tried to deny our child, and how the truth and the law finally made him pay. They say that the moment you become a mother, your heart grows 2 sizes. You feel a love so big, so sudden, that it pushes everything else out of the way. Fear, doubt, sadness, there is no room for them. There is only the baby. I wanted to feel that. I really did. I was lying in a hospital bed. My body was tired. My bones felt heavy, like they were made of lead. In a clear plastic bassinet next to me, my son was sleeping. He was so small. His hands were curled into tiny fists, like he was already ready to fight the world. I looked at him and I smiled, but my smile didn't reach my eyes, because the door to my room was open, and standing in the hallway, just outside the frame of the door, was David. He wasn't coming in. He had been standing there for 20 minutes. A nurse walked in. She was holding a clipboard. She had a kind face, the kind of face that has seen a lot of happiness and a lot of tragedy. She smiled at me. Then she looked at David in the hallway. "Is Dad coming in to sign the birth certificate?" she asked. Her voice was cheerful. She didn't know. My throat went dry. I tried to speak, but the words got stuck. I looked at David's back. He must have heard her. The hallway was quiet, but he didn't turn around. He didn't step forward. I called out his name, softly. "David." He turned then. He looked at me, and then he looked at the baby. I expected to see love. I expected to see fear, maybe. New fathers are always scared. But I didn't see fear. And I didn't see love. I saw nothing. His eyes were cold, like 2 stones at the bottom of a river. He looked at my son, our son, like he was looking at a stranger's luggage at the airport. He walked into the room, slowly. The nurse held out the pen. "Congratulations, Dad," she said. "Just need a signature here to make it official." David put his hands in his pockets. He didn't take the pen. He looked at the nurse, and then he looked at me. The room went very silent. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioner and the soft breathing of my baby. "I'm not signing that," he said. His voice was calm. It was steady. It was the voice he used when he was ordering coffee or talking to a client on the phone. The nurse blinked. She looked confused. "I'm sorry?" "I'm not signing it," David said again. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. It was pity. "I can't claim a child that isn't mine, Elena." My heart stopped. I felt the blood drain from my face. "What are you talking about?" I whispered. "David, look at him. He has your nose. He has your chin." "He's not mine," David said. He took a step back toward the door. "And I won't let you trap me with a lie." And then he turned around. He walked out of the room. He walked down the bright hallway, and he didn't look back. I was left alone. Just me, the nurse, and a baby who didn't have a father anymore. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just looked at the empty doorway. And I realized that the fight for my son's life wasn't just about feeding him or clothing him. The real fight had just begun. To understand how we ended up in that cold hospital room, you have to understand who we were before. We were happy. At least, I thought we were. I met David 3 years ago. It was simple. It was ordinary. We met at a friend's barbecue. He was wearing a blue shirt. I remember that shirt. It brought out the color of his eyes. He was charming, funny, and successful. He worked in finance, and he always walked with a sense of purpose. I was different. I was a teacher. I liked quiet evenings, books, and gardening. I was soft where he was hard. I was slow where he was fast. People said we were a perfect bal. For 2 years, life was like a dream. We moved in together. We bought furniture. We argued about what to watch on TV, and we laughed about whose turn it was to do the dishes. David was affectionate. He would leave notes on the fridge for me. Have a great day. Love you. Simple things. But looking back now, I wonder if I missed the signs. David loved his freedom. He talked a lot about his plan. He had a 5-year plan for his career, a 10-year plan for his retirement. He liked control. He liked to know exactly what was going to happen tomorrow, next week, next year. He never talked about children. Whenever the topic came up, maybe we saw a baby on the bus, or a friend announced a pregnancy, David would smile, but he would change the subject. Maybe one day, he would say, or, let's just enjoy us for a while. I didn't push. I was happy with us. I thought one day meant soon. I didn't realize that for David, one day was a place that didn't exist. Then came the morning that changed everything. It was a Tuesday. It was raining. I remember the sound of the rain hitting the bathroom window. It sounded like fingers tapping on the glass. I sat on the edge of the bathtub, holding the little plastic stick. 2 pink lines. Pregnant. I felt a rush of heat. My hand went to my stomach. There was life there. A tiny spark of life. I felt joy, yes. But underneath the joy, there was a knot of anxiety. I knew David's plan. A baby wasn't in the 5-year plan. But I thought love would be enough. I thought that once he knew, once he realized we were creating a family, the plans would change. Plans are just paper, right? Life is what happens in between. I decided to tell him at dinner. I made his favorite meal, roast chicken with rosemary. I lit candles. I put on his favorite jazz record. When he came home, he was tired. He loosened his tie and sighed. Long day? I asked. The longest, he said. He didn't look up from his phone. Market is volatile. Everyone is panicking. We ate in silence for a while. The jazz music played softly. David, I said. He looked up. I have something to tell you. He put his fork down. He must have heard the tremor in my voice. What is it? Is everything okay? Is it the car again? I reached across the table and took his hand. His skin was warm. No, it's not the car, I said. I took a deep breath. David, we're going to have a baby. I waited for the smile. I waited for him to squeeze my hand. I waited for him to jump up and hug me. I waited, and I waited. The silence stretched out. It felt heavy, like a thick blanket. David slowly pulled his hand away from mine. He sat back in his chair. He looked terrified. A baby? He repeated. Yes, I whispered. I'm 6 weeks along. He ran a hand through his hair. He looked at the window, then at the floor, then at me. Are you sure? Yes. I took 3 tests. He didn't speak for a long time. He stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the rain. This isn't a good time, Elena, he said. His voice was low. I know it wasn't planned, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But it's happening. It's a miracle, David. He turned around. His face was hard. It's not a miracle, he said. It's a complication. Those words hit me like a physical blow. A complication. We can't do this right now, he continued. My promotion is coming up. We wanted to travel. We're not ready. I'm ready, I said. And you will be too. He shook his head. I don't know, Elena. I don't know. That night he slept on the couch. I lay in our big bed, curling my hands over my stomach, whispering to the tiny life inside me. I told the baby that Daddy was just scared. I told the baby that Daddy would come around. I was wrong. The weeks turned into months. My belly began to grow. And as my body changed, David changed too. He didn't leave immediately. That would have been easier, maybe. If he had just packed his bags and left that first night, I would have known where I stood. Instead, he stayed. But he wasn't really there. He became a ghost in his own house. He started working later and later. He would come home after I was asleep. In the mornings, he would leave before I woke up. We stopped eating dinner together. The candles gathered dust. The jazz records stayed in their sleeves. When we did talk, it was polite. It was cold. How are you feeling? He would ask, looking at the TV. I'm okay, I would say. The baby is kicking today. He would flinch. Every time I mentioned the baby, he would physically flinch, like I had poked him with a needle. He never touched my stomach. He never asked to see the ultrasound pictures. I left them on the fridge, hoping he would look at them when I wasn't looking. One day, I came home and found the pictures face down on the counter. I went to every doctor's appointment alone. I sat in the waiting room surrounded by happy couples. I saw husbands holding their wives' hands, rubbing their backs, looking excited. I sat with my purse in the empty chair next to me. When the doctor used the Doppler to find the heartbeat, whoosh, 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 I recorded it on my phone. I sent the audio file to David. Message, listen to this. Our little boy's heart. He never replied. By the 7th month, the silence in our house was so loud it hurt my ears. I felt like I was walking on eggshells. I tried to be the perfect partner. I didn't complain about my swollen ankles. I didn't complain about the nausea. I thought if I made it easy for him, he would stop being afraid. But fear turns into resentment very quickly. It was a Friday evening in August. It was hot. The air was thick and humid. I was huge by then, waddling around the kitchen trying to make a salad. David came home early for once. He smelled of alcohol. Not drunk, but he had been drinking. He stood in the kitchen doorway, watching me. You should sit down, he said. I'm fine, I said. I'm making dinner. Stop, he said. I stopped cutting the cucumber. I looked at him. David, what's wrong? I can't do this anymore, Elena, he said. My heart started to race. Can't do what? This, he waved his hand around the room. The pretending, the waiting. We're having a baby, David. It's not pretending, it's reality. He laughed. It was a dry, bitter sound. Is it? He asked. He took a step closer. His eyes were dark. Are you sure it's mine? The world stopped spinning. "What did you say?" I whispered. "You heard me," he said. "We were having problems before this happened." "You were distant. Maybe you found comfort somewhere else. Maybe this miracle is just a way to trap me." I couldn't breathe. I felt like he had slapped me. "How dare you?" I said. My voice shook. "I have loved only you. I have been faithful to you every single day. How can you say that?" "It's convenient, isn't it?" he sneered. "I get a promotion, and suddenly you're pregnant. It fits perfectly." "I didn't know about your promotion," I cried. Tears started to stream down my face. "David, this is. How can you look at me and doubt that?" "I don't know who you are anymore," he said coldly. He turned around and walked to the bedroom. I heard the sound of a suitcase zipper. I stood in the kitchen, unable to move. I listened to him packing his clothes. I listened to him opening drawers and slamming them shut. 10 minutes later, he walked out with a bag over his shoulder. "Where are you going?" I asked. "I'm staying at a hotel," he said. "I need space. I need to think." "David, please," I begged. "Don't leave me like this. Not now. The baby is coming soon." He paused at the front door. For a second, just a second, I thought he would stay. "If the baby is mine," he said, not looking at me, "then we'll talk. But until I know for sure, I'm done." The door closed, the lock clicked, and I was alone. I didn't hear from him for 2 months. I gave birth to Lucas on a Tuesday morning. My mother was there. She held my hand. She wiped my forehead. She told me I was strong. But every time the door opened, my eyes darted to it, hoping to see him, hoping he had come to his senses. He never came. That scene in the hospital, the one where he refused to sign the birth certificate, that was the first time I had seen him since he walked out the door with his suitcase. I went home with Lucas. My mother stayed for a week, but eventually, she had to go back to her life. I was alone in the apartment that David and I had rented together. His name was still on the lease. His coat was still in the closet, but he was gone. Taking care of a newborn, alone, is a special kind of exhaustion. You don't sleep. You don't eat. You exist in a haze of diapers, milk, and crying. Lucas was a good baby, but he had colic. He would cry for hours in the middle of the night. I would walk the floor with him, bouncing him on my shoulder. "Shh, shh, it's okay," I would whisper. "Mommy is here. Mommy has you." Sometimes at 3 a.m., when the world was dark and silent, I would sit in the rocking chair and cry with him. I felt so abandoned. I felt so small. I wondered if David was right. Was I unlovable? Was I not enough? But then, the sun would come up. Lucas would look at me with his big, dark eyes, David's eyes, and he would smile a gummy, milk-drunk smile, and I knew I had to keep going. Then came the letter. It was 3 weeks after the birth. I was feeding Lucas when the mailman dropped it through the slot. I saw the return address. It was a law firm. My hands shook as I opened it. I unfolded the crisp white paper. Petition for establishment of non-paternity. The words swam before my eyes. I had to read it 3 times to understand. David wasn't just staying away. He was suing me. He was legally denying that Lucas was his son. He was demanding and the letter went further. It said that if the child was not his, he would be suing me for emotional distress and fraud, for the rent he had paid while I was pregnant. And if the child was his? I read the last paragraph. In the event that paternity is established, my client wishes to relinquish all parental rights and financial responsibility, citing deception on the part of the mother. He wanted nothing to do with us. He wanted to erase us. I looked at Lucas. He was asleep in his swing, unaware that his father was trying to delete him from existence. A fire lit up inside me. It started in my stomach and spread to my chest. It wasn't sadness anymore. It wasn't fear. It was anger. Pure, righteous anger. He could leave me. He could break my heart. That was fine. I could handle that. But he was calling my son a lie. He was calling my son a mistake. I put the letter down on the table. I picked up the phone. I didn't call David. I called a lawyer. "Hello," a voice answered. "I need help," I said. My voice was steady. "My ex is denying his child, and I need to fight him." The war had started. I walked into the lawyer's office with Lucas strapped to my chest in a carrier. He was sleeping against my heart. The lawyer was a woman named Mrs. Gable. She had gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that looked like they could see right through a stone wall. She didn't smile when I walked in. She just pointed to the chair. I sat down. I put the letter from David's lawyer on her desk. "He says the baby isn't his," I said. "He wants a DNA test." Mrs. Gable put on her glasses. She read the letter. The room was quiet, except for the sound of paper crinkling. "Standard intimidation tactic," she said. She took off her glasses. "He wants to scare you. He thinks if he makes this difficult enough, you'll walk away. He thinks you'll be too proud to fight for money or recognition." "I don't care about the money," I said. "I can work. I can raise Lucas on my own." Mrs. Gable shook her head. "Elena, listen to me. This isn't about you. And it isn't about David. It's about him." She pointed to the sleeping baby on my chest. "The law says a child has a right to know who his father is. He has a right to support. You cannot let pride steal that from your son." She was right. I knew she was right. "We do the test," I said. "We do the test," she agreed. "And when the results come back positive, we prepare for war. Because a man who tries to deny his own blood doesn't give up easily." The day of the paternity test was gray and cold. The sky looked like a bruised peach. The clinic was on the other side of town. I arrived early. I sat in the waiting room, bouncing Lucas on my knee. My hands were freezing. Then the door opened. David walked in. It had been 3 months since he left. He looked good. That was the hardest part. I expected him to look tired. I expected him to look miserable without me, but he looked rested. His suit was crisp. He was checking his watch. He walked to the receptionist and signed his name. He didn't look around the room. He didn't look at the chairs. He sat down 3 seats away from me. I looked at his profile. This was the man I had slept next to for 2 years. This was the man I had laughed with. Now he sat there like a stranger on a subway train. "David," I said. He stiffened. He slowly turned his head. His eyes landed on me. Then they slid down to the bundle in my arms. Lucas was awake. He was looking around with wide, curious eyes. "He's awake," I said softly. Do you want to see him?" David's jaw tightened. "No." The word hung in the air. It was sharp. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. My voice was trembling, but I forced myself to speak. "Why are you dragging us through this? You know he's yours." "I know nothing," David said. His voice was like ice. "I know that the timing was suspicious. I know that I didn't want this, and you knew that. You made a choice, Elena. Now you have to live with the consequences." "A child is not a consequence," I whispered. He is a person. He is a liability, David said. Before I could scream, before I could cry, the nurse opened the door. David? Elena? We're ready for you. We walked into the room. It was small and smelled of rubbing alcohol. The nurse was cheerful. She didn't sense the hatred in the room. Or maybe she ignored it. Okay, Dad first, she said. David sat in the chair. He opened his mouth. The nurse swabbed the inside of his cheek. He looked at the ceiling the whole time. He looked bored. Okay, now the little one, the nurse said. I sat down with Lucas. The nurse was gentle. She rubbed the swab inside Lucas's tiny cheek. He made a face and started to whimper. It's okay, baby, I cooed. It's okay. I looked at David. He was standing by the door, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, as if the test itself was dirty. He didn't look at his son crying. He just looked at the door, waiting to escape. When we were done, he walked out without a word. I watched him get into his car through the window. I watched him drive away. I held Lucas tight. Don't worry, I told him. We don't need him to love us. We just need the truth. The waiting is the worst part. They told us it would take 5 business days. 5 days of waking up and checking the mailbox. 5 days of jumping every time the phone rang. I tried to keep busy. I cleaned the apartment until it sparkled. I took Lucas for long walks in the park. I told my mother everything was fine, even though I was falling apart inside. On the 5th day, the call. It wasn't the clinic. It was Mrs. Gable. Elena, she said, the results are in. Can you come to my office? Just tell me, I said. I was gripping the phone so hard my knuckles were white. Just tell me over the phone. There was a pause. The probability of paternity is 99.99%, she said. David is the father. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I closed my eyes. Tears leaked out. It wasn't a surprise. I knew the truth. But hearing the science confirm it, felt like a heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't a liar. Does he know? I asked. His lawyer has been notified, Mrs. Gable said. And Elena? They responded immediately. What did they say? Is he ready to talk now? No, she said. Her voice was serious. He's filed a new motion. He is acknowledging paternity, but he is petitioning to terminate his parental rights completely. He wants a clean break. No visitation, no custody. And in exchange, he wants to pay a one-time settlement and never hear from you again. My blood ran cold. A settlement? Like he was paying off a bad car loan? He wants to buy his way out of being a father? I asked. Yes, and we have a court date for next week. The courtroom wasn't like on TV. It was smaller. It was quiet. There was no jury, just a judge sitting behind a high wooden bench. David was there with his lawyer, a man in an expensive gray suit who looked like he smiled for a living but didn't mean it. David wouldn't look at me. He stared straight ahead at the judge. I sat with Mrs. Gable. My hands were shaking in my lap. I had left Lucas with my mother. I didn't want him in this room. I didn't want him to absorb the coldness of this place. The judge was an older man with glasses. He looked tired. He shuffled the papers in front of him. All right, the judge said. We are fluid regarding the paternity and custody of the minor child, Lucas. He looked over his glasses at David. Mr. Thompson, the judge said, the DNA test is conclusive. You are the father. David's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, My client acknowledges the biological connection. However, we are here to argue that forced parenthood is detrimental to all parties. My client made his position clear to the mother before the child was born. He stated he was not ready for a child. The mother proceeded against his wishes. I felt the anger rising in my throat. Proceeded against his wishes? Like I had ordered a pizza he didn't want? David's lawyer continued. Mr. Thompson is a career-focused individual. He travels. He works 80 hours a week. He is not fit to be a father, and he admits that. We believe it is in the best interest of the child to sever the legal tie. Mr. Thompson is offering a generous lump sum of $50,000 to the mother to resolve this matter permanently. $50,000. That was the price he put on his son. The judge looked at David. Mr. Thompson, do you have anything to add? David stood up. He buttoned his jacket. He looked calm. Too calm. Your Honor, David said. His voice was smooth. I am a logical man. I don't believe in doing things halfway. I cannot be a father. I don't have the desire. And I don't have the time. If you force me to be in this child's life, I will resent him. He will grow up knowing his father doesn't want him. Isn't it better to just cut the cord now? Let Elena find someone who wants to be a dad. I'll pay the money. I'll walk away. Everyone wins. The room went silent. I looked at him. I really looked at him. And for the first time, I didn't see the man I loved. I saw a coward. A selfish, empty coward. Mrs. Gable squeezed my arm. She stood up. Your Honor, she said. Her voice was sharp and clear. This is not a business transaction. You cannot return a child to the store because you changed your mind. Mr. Thompson speaks about logic, but he forgets responsibility. He helped create a life. That life exists. Lucas exists, and the law is clear. A parent cannot simply resign because it interferes with their career. She turned to David. You say you will resent the child? She asked him. That is your choice, but you will support him. You will provide for him, because that little boy did not ask to be born, but he is here, and he deserves the same quality of life that you enjoy. David rolled his eyes. He actually rolled his eyes. The judge cleared his throat. It was a loud, booming sound. Mr. Thompson, the judge said. His voice was no longer tired. It was stern. I have heard enough. David looked confident. He thought he had won. He thought his logic was perfect. You seem to treat fatherhood like a gym membership you want to cancel, the judge said. But that is not how this works. Biology creates a bond, but the law enforces the duty. The judge leaned forward. I am denying your request to terminate parental rights. You are the father. You will be listed on the birth certificate. David's face turned red. But Your Honor, I am not finished, the judge snapped. You will pay monthly child support based on your income, not a lump sum you decided on. And regarding custody, the judge looked at me. His eyes softened. Miss Elena, do you want this man to have visitation? I stood up. My legs felt weak, but my voice was strong. No, Your Honor, I said. I don't want his money for me. I want it for Lucas, but I don't want him near my son. Not until he learns what it means to be a human being. David scoffed. Fine by me, he muttered. Very well, the judge said. Sole physical and legal custody to the mother. Mr. Thompson will pay maximum state-mandated support, and Mr. Thompson David looked up. He looked angry now. The cool mask was gone. "You may think you have escaped," the judge said quietly. "But one day, that boy will grow up, and he will ask where you were, and no amount of money will fix the answer you'll have to give." The gavel banged. Crack. It was over. We walked out of the courtroom. The hallway was crowded. David walked fast, trying to get to the elevator. His lawyer was whispering something to him, probably about appeals or reducing payments. "David," I called out. "I don't know why I did it." Mrs. Gable tried to stop me, but I pulled away. He stopped. He turned around. His face was twisted in a scowl. "What?" he spat. "You got what you wanted. You got the check. Are you happy?" I walked right up to him. I was inches from his face. "I didn't get what I wanted," I said. "I wanted a family. I wanted a father for my son. I wanted the man I fell in love with to be real." I took a deep breath. "But you aren't real, David. You're hollow." "Are you done?" he asked, checking his watch again. "Almost," I said. "I just wanted to tell you one thing. You think Lucas is a burden. You think he's a mistake. But you are missing the greatest thing that will ever happen to you. You are going to wake up in 10 years, in your perfect house, with your perfect career. And you are going to be lonely. And Lucas, he's going to be loved. He's going to be happy. And he won't even know your name." David stared at me. For a fleeting second, I saw a crack in his armor. I saw a flash of doubt. But then, the elevator doors opened. He stepped inside. "Goodbye, Elena," he said. The doors closed. I stood in the hallway. I was shaking, but I wasn't crying. Mrs. Gable came up beside me. She put a hand on my shoulder. "You did good," she said. "Is it really over?" I asked. "The legal part? Mostly," she said. "But the hard part is just starting. Now you have to raise him." I nodded. I thought of Lucas waiting for me at my mother's house. I thought of his soft skin and his little hands. "I can do that," I said. "That's the easy part." But I was wrong. The legal battle was over, but the emotional storm was far from finished. Because as Lucas grew, the questions began. And I realized that you can win in court, but you can't force a heart to heal just because a judge says so. And David, he wasn't done with us yet. He just didn't know it. 6 months later, the phone rang again. It was late. I was grading papers at the kitchen table. Lucas was asleep in his crib. I picked up the phone. "Hello? Elena?" The voice was slurred. It was heavy. It was David. My heart hammered against my ribs. He hadn't spoken to me since the elevator. The checks came automatically from his bank, but I never heard a word. "David?" I asked. "What do you want?" "I saw a picture," he mumbled. "On social media. Your friend posted it." I frowned. My friend Sarah had posted a picture of Lucas at the park yesterday. He was sitting in the grass, laughing. He looked so much like David, it was scary. "So," I said. "He looks like me," David whispered. "Yes," I said, "he does." "I made a mistake," he said. I froze. "I made a mistake, Elena. I want to see him." I closed my eyes. The anger that I had buried deep inside came rushing back like a tidal wave. He wanted to see him? After the hospital? After the DNA test? After the courtroom where he called his son a liability? "You want to see him?" I repeated. "Yes, I have rights. I'm his father." I gripped the phone. "You made your choice, David. You stood in front of a judge and said you didn't want him. You paid $50,000 to erase him." I was stressed. I was scared, he shouted. "I'm changing my mind." You can't change your mind about a person, I yelled back. He isn't a hobby. He isn't a car. He is a baby. I'll take you back to court, he threatened. The sadness in his voice was gone, replaced by the old arrogance. I have money, Elena. I can keep you in court for years until you let me see him. I felt sick. Do what you have to do, I said. But you are not coming near my son. I hung up the phone. My hands were trembling again. I walked into the nursery. I looked down at Lucas. He was sleeping peacefully, his thumb in his mouth. I promised him I would protect him. I promised him I would keep the monsters away. But the monster was his father. And he was coming back. I didn't sleep that night. Every time the wind rattled the window, I jumped. I checked the lock on the front door 3 times. I checked the window in Lucas's room. I felt like I was being hunted. The next morning, I called Mrs. Gable. I told her about the phone call. I told her about the slur in his voice, the threats, the anger. I expected her to tell me not to worry. I expected her to say that the court order was final and he couldn't touch us. But she didn't say that. She sighed. It was a long, tired sigh. Elena, she said, the family court system is complicated. Even if a father signs away his rights, or tries to, judges often favor reunification. If he files a petition, claiming he has changed, claiming he wants to be involved, the court will likely grant him a hearing. They believe a child needs both parents. But he's dangerous, I said. He's unstable. He denied his son existed. I know, she said. And we will use that. We will fight, but you need to prepare yourself. He has money, and in the legal system, money buys time. It buys chances. She was right. 2 weeks later, the papers arrived. David wasn't just asking for visitation. He was asking for shared custody. 50-50. He claimed he had undergone counseling. He claimed he had a stable home. He claimed I was alienating him from his son. The audacity took my breath away. Alienating him? I was the one who begged him to sign the birth certificate. I was the one who sent him the heartbeat recording. We went back to court. It was the same building, but a different judge. This one was younger, a woman who seemed overworked. She looked at the files. She looked at David, who was wearing his best suit, looking humble and regretful. Your Honor, David said, his voice trembling just enough to sound sincere. I was scared. I made a terrible mistake. I missed the first year of my son's life, and I regret it every day. I just want a chance to be a father. I want to make it right. He was acting. I knew it. But the judge didn't know him like I did. She saw a father begging for his child. Everyone deserves a second chance, Miss Elena, the judge told me. We will start with supervised visitation, 2 hours a week, at a state-approved center. If that goes well for 6 months, we will discuss weekends. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table, but I nodded. I had to play the game. For Lucas, the first visit was on a Saturday. The visitation center was a depressing place. It smelled like old coffee and bleach. There were toys in the corner that looked sticky. I sat in the waiting room while the social worker took Lucas into the back room where David was waiting. Lucas was 14 months old now. He was walking. He was saying mama and juice and dog. He didn't know David. To him, David was a stranger. When the social worker took his hand, Lucas looked back at me. His lip trembled. He started to cry. He reached his little arms out to me. Mama, Mama. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. I had to force a smile. "It's okay, baby," I said, choking back tears. "Go play. Mama is right here." The door closed. I sat there for 2 hours, staring at the clock. I could hear muffled voices through the wall. I heard Lucas crying for the first 20 minutes. Then silence. When the door finally opened, David walked out first. He looked annoyed. His shirt was wrinkled. He was holding a very expensive, very large, remote-controlled car. He didn't like the car, David said to me. "No hello, no how are you. Just a complaint." I spent $200 on this thing, and he just wanted to cry. "He's a baby, David," I said, taking Lucas into my arms. Lucas buried his face in my neck, sobbing quietly. He doesn't care about money. He needs comfort. He doesn't know you. "Well, he needs to learn," David said. "He's too soft. You're making him soft." That was the dynamic for the next year. Every Saturday, we went to the center. David would show up with expensive gifts: giant stuffed animals, electronic tablets, brand-name sneakers that didn't fit. He tried to buy Lucas's love. He never asked what Lucas liked to eat. He never asked about his nap schedule. He never asked if he had any allergies. He just wanted to be the hero with the presents. And when Lucas didn't react the way David wanted, when Lucas was shy or tired or cranky, David would get frustrated. He would look at the social worker and roll his eyes as if his son was a defective product. But because David showed up, because he didn't hit him, because he paid the fees, the court saw it as progress. When Lucas turned 3, the judge granted unsupervised visits every other weekend. I remember packing his little bag for that first weekend. I packed his favorite blanket. I packed his sippy cup. I wrote a 3-page note for David with instructions. Bedtime is at 7:30. He needs the nightlight on. He is allergic to strawberries. Please don't let him watch scary movies. When David arrived to pick him up, he didn't even look at the note. He threw the bag in the back of his luxury SUV. "We'll be fine, Elena," he said, putting on his sunglasses. "Stop hovering. He's a boy. He needs to tough it up." "He's 3, I said. "Please, David, just read the note." He drove away. The house felt so empty. The silence was deafening. I sat on Lucas's bed and smelled his pillow. I prayed. That weekend was the longest 48 hours of my life. I called David Saturday night to say goodnight to Lucas. He didn't answer. I texted. No reply. I paced the floor. I almost drove to his house. Finally, on Sunday morning, I got a text back. "He's fine. We are busy. Stop harassing me." When he dropped Lucas off on Sunday evening, my son looked exhausted. His clothes were dirty. His face was sticky. "Mama!" Lucas ran to me and hugged my legs. I looked at David. "Did he eat? Did he nap?" "We had pizza," David said, "and we went to the arcade. He's fine." Later that night, as I was giving Lucas a bath, I saw it. A dark bruise on his shin and a scrape on his elbow. "Lucas, baby, what happened?" I asked, touching the bruise gently. Lucas looked down. "Daddy said I was too slow." "Too slow? Doing what?" "Running, at the park. Daddy said, 'Run faster.' I fell." "Did Daddy help you up?" Lucas shook his head. Danny said, big boys don't cry. He said, 'Get up.'" My blood boiled. I wrapped him in a towel and held him close. "It's okay to cry," I told him. "It's always okay to cry." As the months went on, the confusion started. Lucas began to come home with questions that no 3-year-old should have. "Mama, "Why is our house so small?" he asked one day over dinner. "It's not small, sweetie. It's cozy. It's our home." "Daddy says it's a shoebox," Lucas said, poking at his peas. "Daddy says he has a big house because he works hard. He says you don't work hard." I put my fork down. I worked 2 jobs. I was a teacher by day, and I tutored on weekends just to pay the legal bills that David kept piling on me. "Daddy shouldn't say things like that," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Daddy says you stole his money," Lucas continued. "He told Grandma on the phone. He said you are a gold digger." I felt sick. He wasn't just being a negligent father. He was poisoning my son against me. He was using a toddler as a weapon. I called Mrs. Gable the next day. "We need to stop this," I said. "He's verbally abusive. He's manipulating him." "We need proof," she said. "Unless Lucas is in physical danger, the court is hesitant to stop visitation. It's he said, she said. You need to document everything." So I did. I started a journal. Every bruise, every mean comment Lucas repeated, every time David was late, every time he returned Lucas sick or hungry. The breaking point came in the winter. It was Lucas's 4th birthday. David had insisted on throwing the party. He wanted to do it at a fancy indoor trampoline park. He invited his work colleagues. He invited his clients. He didn't invite any of Lucas's friends from preschool. I wasn't allowed to come, technically. It was his weekend. But I drove there anyway. I sat in the parking lot, just in case. About an hour into the party, I saw the doors burst open. David was dragging Lucas by the arm. Lucas was screaming, his face red and wet with tears. David looked furious. I jumped out of my car and ran over. "What are you doing?" I yelled. David stopped. He looked at me with wild eyes. "Take him," he snapped. He shoved Lucas toward me. "Just take him." "What happened?" I asked, kneeling down to hug my shaking son. "He embarrassed me," David shouted. People in the parking lot stopped to look. "My boss is in there. My clients are in there." And he's sitting under the table crying because the music is too loud. I told him to come out. I told him to cut the cake, and he wet his pants. I looked at Lucas's trousers. They were soaked. He was humiliated. "He's 4, David," I screamed. "He's overwhelmed. You don't invite business clients to a 4-year-old's birthday." "I spent $1,000 on this party," David yelled. "And he acts like a baby." "He is a baby." "I'm done," David said. He adjusted his tie. "Get him out of here. I have to go apologize to my guests." He turned around and walked back into the building. He left his son crying in a parking lot on his birthday because he didn't fit the image David wanted to project. I drove Lucas home. I put him in a warm bath. I made him hot cocoa. We watched his favorite cartoon. "I'm sorry, Mama," Lucas whispered. "I'm sorry I ruined the party." "Oh, Lucas," I said, tears streaming down my face. "You didn't ruin anything. You are perfect. Daddy just doesn't understand." That night, after Lucas fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table. I looked at my journal. It was full of pain. It was full of confusion. I realized that this wasn't going to get better. David wasn't going to learn. He was a narcissist. He viewed Lucas as an extension of himself, not as a person. And every time Lucas failed to be the perfect accessory, David would punish him. I couldn't live like this. I couldn't let my son grow up feeling like a disappointment. But then something shifted. The next morning, I received a new email from Mrs. Gable. Subject: urgent, new motion filed. I opened it. My stomach dropped to the floor. David wasn't giving up. He wasn't stepping back after the disaster at the party. He had twisted the story. The motion claimed that I had caused the scene at the party. It claimed I had shown up uninvited and caused emotional distress to the child. And because of my instability, David was now P for full, sole custody. He wanted to take Lucas away from me completely. He wanted to move him to a different school. He wanted to hire a nanny to raise him. He wanted to win. I stared at the screen. The fear was gone. The sadness was gone. I looked at the picture of Lucas on the fridge. David had money. He had lawyers. He had lies. But he had made one critical mistake. He had underestimated a mother's rage. I picked up the phone and dialed Mrs. Gable. "Let's go to trial," I said. "No more settlements. No more agreements. I want him on the stand. I want the world to see who he really is." "Are you sure?" she asked. "It will be brutal, Elena. They will attack your character. They will dig up everything." "I don't care," I said. "He wants a fight? I'll give him a war." The months leading up to the trial were a blur of paperwork and sleepless nights. My living room floor became a sea of documents. Every text message David had ever sent, every receipt, every medical record. David's lawyers were aggressive. They sent people to interview my neighbors. They subpoenaed my employment records. They tried to find dirt on me. They wanted to prove that I was unfit because I worked too much, because I was a single mother, because I was emotional. But they didn't know that a mother fighting for her child has no limit. I was tired, yes, but I was focused. Mrs. Gable was brilliant. She told me we needed something more than just my word against his. We needed to show the court who David really was when the cameras weren't rolling. We subpoenaed a security footage from the trampoline park. David's lawyer tried to block it. They claimed it was irrelevant. They claimed it was an invasion of privacy. But the judge allowed it. The morning of the trial, I woke up before the sun. I went into Lucas's room. He was sleeping with his arms thrown over his head, breathing soft and deep. I kissed his forehead. "I won't let him take you," I whispered. "I promise." The courtroom was packed. David had brought his parents. They sat in the back row. They had never met Lucas, not once. They looked at me with cold, judging eyes. David took the stand first. He was charming. He wore a navy blue suit. He spoke softly. He told the judge that he loved his son. He said he had been alienated by a jealous ex-girlfriend. He said the incident at the birthday party was my fault, that I had shown up screaming and scared the child. "I just want to provide a stable home for Lucas," David said, wiping a fake tear from his eye. "I have the resources. I have the home. She lives in a small apartment. I can give him the world." My stomach turned. He was so convincing. If I didn't know him, I would have believed him. Then it was Mrs. Gable's turn. She stood up slowly. She didn't look at David. She walked to the center of the room. "Mr. Thompson," she began, "you say you want to provide a stable home. Can you tell the court the name of Lucas's pediatrician?" David blinked. He looked at his lawyer. I don't have it on me right now." "Can you tell us the name of his teacher?" Mrs. Gable asked. "He goes to a preschool," David said vaguely. "The one on Oak Street." "He doesn't go to the one on Oak Street," Mrs. Gable said. "He goes to Little Learners on 5th. You've never dropped him off, have you?" "I work," David snapped. "I hire people for that." "Right," Mrs. Gable said. "You hire people. Now, let's talk about the birthday party. You stated under oath that Elena caused the scene, that she dragged the child." "Yes," David said. "She was hysterical." Mrs. Gable turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I would like to submit Exhibit D, Security footage from the parking lot of the trampoline park, time-stamped 2:14 p.m. David's face went pale. A screen in the courtroom flickered to life. The video was grainy, but it was clear enough. It showed the parking lot. It showed my car pulling in and parking. I didn't get out. I sat there. 2 minutes later, the doors of the building flew open. The video showed a man, David, dragging a small child by the arm. The child was stumbling, trying to keep up. The man was shouting. You couldn't hear the audio, but you could see his aggressive body language. You could see him shaking his finger in the child's face. You saw me run out of the car. You saw David shove the child toward me and storm off. The courtroom was silent. Mrs. Gable paused the video on the frame where David was shoving Lucas. "Mr. Thompson," she said. Her voice was ice cold. "Is that you protecting your son? Or is that you discarding him because he embarrassed you?" David didn't answer. He stared at the screen. His charm was gone. His mask had slipped. I was stressed," he stammered. "It was a bad day." "A bad day?" Mrs. Gable asked. "You are asking for full custody of a 4-year-old boy. Toddlers have bad days, Mr. Thompson. They cry, they have accidents. If this is how you handle a bad day at a party, how will you handle the flu? How will you handle a nightmare at 3 a.m.? David looked down at his hands. "No further questions," Mrs. Gable said. When the judge called a recess, David's parents walked out without looking at him. David sat alone at his table. He looked small. The final ruling came 2 days later. I stood before the judge. My hands were shaking, but this time it was from adrenaline. The judge looked at David. He didn't hide his disgust. "Mr. Thompson," the judge said, "in my 20 years on the bench, I have rarely seen a parent so determined to use a child as a pawn. You lied to this court. You attempted to buy your way out of fatherhood, and when that didn't work, you attempted to bully your way into custody just to hurt the mother." David tried to speak, but the judge held up a hand. "You have proven that you have no interest in the well-being of this child. You view him as a possession. The court finds that placing the child in your care would be detrimental to his emotional and physical safety." I held my breath. "Sole, legal, and physical custody is awarded to the mother, Elena," the judge ruled. "Mr. Thompson, your visitation is hereby suspended until you complete a 52-week anger management course and a parenting class. After that, you may petition for supervised visits only." David stood up. He looked furious, but he didn't say a word. He grabbed his briefcase and stormed out of the courtroom. He didn't look at me. He didn't ask about Lucas. He just left. That was the last time I saw him. He never took the anger management course. He never petitioned for visits. The checks for child support continued to arrive. Autopilot payments from a man who wanted to forget we existed. But the phone calls stopped. The threats stopped. Silence returned to our lives. But this time, it wasn't a lonely silence. It was a peaceful one. Years went by. Lucas grew. The bruising on his shin healed. The memories of the scary man who yelled at him began to fade. We built a life. Just the two of us. It wasn't the life I had planned back when I met David. It wasn't the picket fence and the perfect family, but it was real. We had Friday night movie nights. We had Saturday morning pancakes. We had hikes in the woods where Lucas could run as fast or as slow as he wanted, and no one told him to tough it up. I watched him become a person. He was kind. He was sensitive. He loved animals and drawing. He had David's eyes, yes, but he had my heart. The question about his father came when he was. We were sitting on the porch, watching a storm roll in. "Mom?" Lucas asked. He was whittling a stick with a pocket knife I had bought him. "Yeah, bud." "Do I have a dad?" I stopped rocking in my chair. I knew this day would come. I had practiced the answer 1,000 times in the shower. I looked at him. He wasn't looking at me. He was focused on the stick. "You have a father," I said gently. "His name is David." "Where is he?" "He lives in the city," I said. He wasn't ready to be a dad, Lucas. Being a parent is a really big job. It takes a lot of unselfishness. And David, he just couldn't do it. Lucas was quiet for a long time. The rain started to tap on the roof. "Does he hate me?" Lucas asked. The voice was so small. I moved from my chair to sit next to him on the steps. I wrapped my arm around his shoulders. "No," I said firmly. "He doesn't hate you. He doesn't know you. And that is his loss. That is the biggest mistake of his life, because you're the best thing in the world." Lucas leaned his head on my shoulder. "I don't need him," Lucas said. "I have you." I squeezed him tight, trying to keep my voice steady. "You have me forever." Tonight, I am writing this story from my desk. The house is quiet. Lucas is 16 now. He's in his room, probably playing video games or talking to a girl on the phone. He is happy. He is confident. He is a young man who knows how to treat people with respect. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder about David. I wonder if he sits in his big house, surrounded by his expensive furniture, and feels the silence. I wonder if he looks at his bank account and realizes that all that money can't buy him a legacy. He tried to deny our child. He tried to erase him with legal papers and intimidation. But he failed, because you can't erase love. You can't legislate a mother's instinct. He thought Lucas was a burden. He thought a child would ruin his life. He was wrong. Lucas didn't ruin my life. He saved it. For anyone out there listening, for anyone who's been left behind, or denied, or told they weren't enough, listen to me. Family isn't about blood. It isn't about a signature on a birth certificate. Family is the people who stay. Family is the people who hold your hand when you're scared, who cheer for you when you win, and who love you even when you make a mess. Let the others go. Let the cowards walk away. Because when the storm clears, you will look around and see who is still standing. And those are the only people who matter. I looked at the closed door of my son's room one last time. I smiled. We made it.